I'm interested in improving the well-being of the population, particularly in developing countries. And this is what we call economic, or the process of economic development. It's not a one-time event, but it's a process through which we create value. We add value to a particular set of resources. And that's what we call economic development. From a given set of resources, we create higher value. And that's how we achieve higher standards of living. Consider the situation where a farmer, and we can think of very poor farmers, who the only resource they have is some land, and then they may enter into production of some crops, but then they end up selling those crops in the market where they exchange them for particular goods and services. That type of exchange creates value because both of the people involved in the transaction are getting something that they didn't have. And that process creates value. You are adding value to an original set of resources. And that's really the process of economic development. It's a chain of those exchanges, increasingly creating different values. The good thing about the market is that it does not really matter who you exchange with. It is impersonal. It does not matter whether you exchange with your relative or you exchange with a person who is your neighbor or outside the country or in another country. The issue is what we call mutual benefits from trade, and everybody gains from that transaction. And that's what we like to be achieving. And the more transactions we have, the more exchanges that we have, the more value we create, and the better off everybody is. The good thing about trade is that everybody benefits from trade. One of the core ideas in economic theory is that we create value through exchange. And the more we have freedom to exchange, the higher the value that we are able to create. At least we maximize the gains. Even within many countries, there is a tendency to protect through erecting barriers of trade. And in essence, the protection destroys value. It hinders trade, it destroys jobs. So in essence, for Africans countries like Africa, it protects them from moving out of poverty. When a lot of policies that are made in economics are made on the wrong premise, that actually large countries like United States, if they trade with a small country like my small country Kenya, the gains will basically be going to one country. There is always this view that developed countries will benefit at the expense of poor countries, and that is actually a ridiculous argument. In fact, poor countries can get a lot of gains from trade, even when they trade with the developed countries. So there is a myth that just because we have a huge economy like the United States, if we trade with them or open our markets, we will be finished because United States will demolish. We will just flood the goods in the United States. That's not true. There are gains from trade even to those small countries, and they can do very well. If you look at what's going on now in many countries, even the poorest countries, think about one of the important gadgets that has been quite important in contributing to economic growth and the quality of life is the cell phone. The cell phone has done a lot in terms of even communicating. Even in poor countries, people can sell products now even using the telephone, even in very poor countries. Now, without trade, we will not have access to this type of instruments and this type of technology. And that's why it's important to really trade with someone who has something that you don't have. You are not going to benefit much if you trade with someone who just have the same things or have the same technology as you do. So the more we trade with the United States, with Japan and other countries, the better off that we are going to be. We are going to access. This is also true for the issues like drugs that are very important. So we have to be able to trade with those countries that have the technology that we don't have. But that is not exploitation. It's actually what we call mutual gains from trade. During the 1960s, soon after independence, when a lot of African countries and other countries got independence, there was a belief that the best policy for them to develop was something called import substitution. And the idea of import substitution is that they were going to start manufacturing those goods that are made in developed countries. For example, automobiles, radios, and other type of goods that are made were being bought from outside. This was a disaster because in essence what the countries were trying to do was to produce goods that they didn't have a comparative advantage in. Now, those countries that did well are the ones that specialized in what they could produce and produce well. Some of that was had to do with agricultural products. We know that even the countries like New Zealand still do produce agricultural products. South Africa was doing very well in terms of agriculture. Recent evidence shows, for example, that a country like Kenya has done very well because of horticulture. Again, in fact, a lot of gains in terms of incomes have come through agriculture. So it's not necessary that you go to immediate manufacturing to be able to do well. Markets have to do with doing what you can at the lowest cost compared to other countries. This example about the issue of agriculture and progress is also applicable to countries that are developed. For example, the Netherlands, which was also used to flower industry and horticulture to prosper, to sell outside to other countries. So the question here is not what you produce, but are you producing it at the lowest cost so that you can exchange with other goods and services with other countries. It's a question of being competitive in what you do.